Welcome to Biggest Spoilars, the destination for exclusive spoilers, latest updates.
General Hospital spoilers allude that Willow Kane's ringtone for Scout Quartermain could change everything. Are Trina Robinson and Kai Taylor on the verge of hearing a stunner? Kai and Trina were hiding in the bedroom during Drew's firing, but they've managed to keep the bobbies in the dark so far. Nonetheless, Trina and Kai are now on a charge to figure out who pulled the detector, so they'll keep trying to gather suggestions. A ringtone for Scout is a pivotal part of what Kai and Trina flash back from that night. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star played and putatively scarified the shooter into fleeing, so Trina and Kai now assume Scout's call to Drew saved his life. That's indeed the ringtone that Drew has set on his phone for Scout, but what if Willow has that same ringtone for her stepdaughter? What if Kai and Trina were actually hearing Willow's phone while she was there to shoot Drew? That's an option that will cross Trina and Kai's minds if they ultimately realize Willow has Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star set for Scout, too. Kai and Trina are hoping to gain a clearer picture of what happened that night by attending the trial. Maybe during a break or indeed after Willow potentially walks free, Trina and Kai will hear Scout calling her phone. That could lead to the brace hale-eyed blink, Twinkle, Little Star, and peering over the possibility that Willow was in the house to shoot Drew. At some point, this ringtone might indeed be what triggers Drew's memory of Willow firing at him doubly. G.H. Penn's put a lot of focus on this ringtone, so it'll surely come into play ever. Kai and Trina don't plan on stopping their disquisition until they uncover who's actually responsible for Drew's nearly demise. You can be sure that Trina and Kai will face some marvels along the way, so we'll bring you updates on any stunning news they might face. General Hospital spoilers say Kai and Trina could be on the verge of getting a significant piece of the mystification. In Port Charles, the truth never stays buried, it rises like water against stone, carving away lies until everything collapses. This week, the baptism is no longer quiet or symbolic. It is public. It is violent. And it begins the moment Carly Corinthos Spencer decides she is done keeping secrets that protect men who believe themselves untouchable. What was once whispered in hallways is now dragged into the light. Brennan deleted evidence. Not misplaced it. Not delayed it. Destroyed it. And by doing so, he may have saved Willow Tate, while simultaneously setting fire to the foundations of justice in Port Charles. The moment Carly breaks the silence. Carly had carried the knowledge like a weight pressing against her chest. At first, she told herself it wasn't her business. Then she told herself it was necessary. Finally, she realized it was dangerous. Brennan hadn't just helped Willow. He had erased proof. Security footage. Digital records. Time-stamped evidence that could have ended the trial before it began, or condemned the wrong person forever. Brennan had made it vanish with the ease of someone who had done it many times before. When Carly finally speaks, it's not in a whisper. It's in anger. She throws the truth into the open, forcing everyone to confront what they'd been avoiding, that the justice system in Port Charles didn't simply fail, it was manipulated. Encouraging words turned inside out. At first, Carly frames her revelation as protection. She reminds everyone that Willow was nearly destroyed by accusations built on circumstantial shadows. She speaks of mercy, of motherhood, of how a woman already fighting for her life didn't deserve to be crushed by a flawed system. Her words sound like encouragement. But beneath them is a warning. Because once the door to truth is opened, it doesn't stop with one name. Brennan's defense, calm, calculated, and chilling. Brennan doesn't panic. That alone terrifies people. He listens as Carly exposes what he did, then responds with practiced composure. He insists the footage was unreliable. Corrupted. Dangerous if misused. He claims he acted to prevent injustice, not cause it. But he never denies deleting it. That silence is louder than any confession. To Brennan, evidence is a tool. A weapon. Something to be controlled, not respected. He speaks of bigger pictures and necessary sacrifices, reducing lives and reputations to chess pieces on a board only he can see. And that's when the encouraging words stop. Angry threats begin to surface. The fallout is immediate. Legal minds realize the implications. If Brennan tampered with evidence once, how many other cases were touched? How many verdicts were guided by unseen hands? Alexis Davis feels the ground shift beneath her feet. Nina Reeves realizes her deal with Brennan came at a cost far greater than she imagined. Jocelyn begins to question everything she thought she knew about power, loyalty, and justice. Even those who benefited from Brennan's actions begin to feel exposed. Because if he erased evidence for Willow, what would he erase next? Or worse, who? Willow at the center of the storm. Willow never asked to be saved this way. When the truth reaches her, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels like contamination. Her potential exoneration is now stained by doubt, not about her innocence, but about the method used to protect it. She wonders if the world will believe she was cleared, or merely shielded. Encouraging words come from those who love her, reminding her that truth still matters, that she didn't pull the trigger, that her conscience is clean. But angry threats loom from the other side, prosecutors furious about interference, enemies eager to turn public opinion, and shadow players who see Willow as leverage. Carly's reckoning. Carly doesn't pretend she's innocent. She admits she benefited from Brennan's willingness to erase inconvenient truths in the past. That admission shocks even her allies. But Carly knows something now that she didn't before. Silence is complicity. And she's done paying for other people's crimes with her soul. Her exposure of Brennan isn't altruistic. It's defensive. She's drawing a line, not just for Willow, but for her children, her family, her future. Because men like Brennan don't stop. They escalate. The system pushes back. Behind closed doors, panic spreads. Judges demand answers. Prosecutors scramble. Investigators realize evidence chains may be compromised beyond repair. The idea that a single man could quietly reshape justice terrifies the city. Brennan insists he's being targeted. But the truth is worse. He's being revealed. A new kind of baptism. This is not redemption through water. This is purification through fire. Carly's revelation forces Port Charles into a reckoning, one where loyalty clashes with law, where saving one innocent may doom another, and where the line between hero and villain dissolves completely. Encouraging words are still spoken, by mothers, lovers, friends clinging to hope. But angry threats echo louder, from courtrooms, from enemies, from the shadows where men like Brennan operate best. And as the evidence debate explodes, one truth becomes unavoidable. The crime wasn't just the shooting. The crime was deciding who deserved the truth. Anna was planning when Pascal came over the PA system and instructed her, in French, to face the wall so he could bring in her lunch. Reluctantly, Anna followed the orders, and formerly he entered her diggings with a serving charger. Pascal questioned why she wasn't working on her biographies. As they continued the discussion in French, an irritated Anna wondered where he'd brought her and why he'd left her a tablet, but Pascal didn't give any answers, only respected how she'd been keeping herself enthralled while held unturned. Formerly done eating, Anna angrily picked up the charger but felt commodity on the bottom. Taped to the underpart was a package wrapped in brown paper, which turned out to be a paperback dupe of The Crystalline Conspiracy by P.K. Sinclair. A new Faison had written under a nom de premium grounded on his and Anna's time working together as intelligencers. Upon reading the necrology, for my muse, see, a frighted Anna tossed the book across the room. A painful verity. Still pretending to be the doting gal, Carly gushed when Jack gave her a choker as an early Christmas gift. He questioned why she hadn't been at the hostel the last many days, so she covered by saying she loved being at home during the leaves. Plus, she was waiting to see much of him while the manhunt for Valentine was ongoing, Carly added. When Jack sussed that Lulu was blocking him from speaking with Charlotte, Carly wondered if he demanded her to speak with her kinsman. Preventing her aspect. Jack replied that he'd no way want to involve Carly or her family in his work. Carly concealed her fury over Jack's comment and offered to speak to Lulu on his behalf, also the couple kissed. Once Jack had gone, Valentine surfaced from the garret. Carly filled him in on how Lulu wasn't letting Jack speak with Charlotte and added that she believed Jack truly wanted to keep Charlotte safe. Ravening that Jack was only kind when it served himself, Valentine asked how Carly had gotten involved with him in the first place. She explained how Jason had been forced to work with the FBI, which ultimately led to her visiting Jack in captivity for information on how the FBI worked, and also Agent John Cates taking her to court on wrongdoing charges. Putting the pieces together, Valentine derived that the charges were dropped when the videotape substantiation faded, since the WSB had technology that could manipulate lines. Hold on. Are you telling me that Jack made the substantiation against me vanish? An appalled Carly questioned. Well, it wasn't Santa Claus, Valentine wisecracked, although frightened to realize the lengths Jack had gone to. Carly wiped gashes from her eyes as she mused that Jack no way told her because he mustn't have wanted her to feel like she owed him commodity. Calling her interpretation dangerously naive, Valentine bare that Jack no way told her because he was withholding that information until he could make the most use out of it. Going for broke. Brad took Britt to Café Sherry to catch up, where they celebrated their reunion over champagne and a 5-course mess. Brad wanted all the details about her supposed death, so Britt gave him the rundown on how she'd been cured after Heather's attack and smuggled to a 5-star resort in Croatia by her father's former associates. In exchange for an experimental medicine that kept her Huntingtons at bay, she helped with their top-secret cold emulsion exploration. Although Pascal was her tutor, her orders came from the top Joe, Jen Sidwell, Britt explained, and Brad honored the name as the father of Lucas's new swain, Marco. Continuing her recap, Britt participated how Jason had ultimately saved her and brought her back to Port Charles. But as relieved as she was to be free of the captivity she was in at the 5 Poppies, Britt commended, she was still being forced to do Sidwell's exploration if she wanted to continue entering her drug. After expressing their happiness to be back in each other's lives, Britt and Brad had a regard down when it came to paying the bill and realized they were both too beggared to cover the tab. After taking Charlotte home from academy, Nathan awaited for Lulu to return from the courthouse, and she commended how important she appreciated him helping her out. She vented her fears that Charlotte would leave with Valentine if given the chance, but Nathan assured her that grounded on the exchanges he'd had with the teen, Charlotte loved her mama. Jack also knocked on the door, demanding to speak with Lulu alone. To Brennan's dismay, she claimed that Nathan stick around, and when she refused to allow him to talk with Charlotte, Jack hovered to take her down to the WSB headquarters to talk. Since she participated as son with a wanted fugitive, Jack claimed, it was a matter of public security. Standing her ground, Lulu dared Brennan to take her in, but Nathan refused to let her be questioned without an attorney. Reiterating his soliloquy that Valentine could come for Charlotte and Lulu was allowing her son to be contributory damage, Jack hit a wimwams when he questioned her decision-making as a mama. As their discussion grew more heated, Jack declared that Valentine had raised Charlotte to be his accessory, and when Nathan sarcastically questioned if Brennan was going to arrest a 16-time-old girl, Jack boasted that he was going to be the one to save Charlotte's life. Realizing he wasn't going to get anywhere with Nathan standing by as Lulu's guard canine, Jack suggested Lulu might be playing right into Detective West's hands. Opining on how accessible it was that the PCPD gave Nathan his emblem back despite him missing 7 times of memory, Jack advised Lulu to flash back that her friend's father was Faison. Jason stopped by Jocelyn's apartment unannounced and held up his phone, which displayed a communication asking if she swept the place for bugs. Since she did that daily, formerly Jocelyn verified they were clear, they bandied how the WSB doesn't trust anyone, not indeed their own agents. Demanding her help for Britt's sake, Jason wanted to know how the WSB's disquisition into the 5 Poppies was tied to Sidwell, Dalton, and Faison. Joss argued that it would be disloyalty for her, as an agent, to partake that intel, but Jason combated that people would assume he'd entered the word from Britt. When Jocelyn suggested that he just get what he demanded to know from Britt, Jason revealed that Britt wouldn't tell him anything. Virtually soliciting, Jason reminded Jocelyn that Britt had doubly saved her life, and Britt demanded the drug they had. She could trust him, Jason declared, unlike Jack Brennan. Jocelyn also participated that she'd been having alternate studies about working for the WSB ever since Vaughn had faded, and she felt like she was nothing further than a tool for her master since Jack was so single-inclined about Sidwell and Faison's design. Jason pledged that he'd die to cover her and Britt, and Joss agreed that she trusted him further than Brennan. During a break after opening statements, Alexis reminded Willow to be attentive, but not emotional, when the substantiations were speaking, and Dante advised Justine that the business cam footage of Willow outside Drew's house had gone missing. Once the trial proceeded, Turner called Tracy as her first substantiation. As Tracy walked through her conduct after chancing Drew bleeding on the bottom, Justine questioned if she'd touched or moved anything other than the mask she used to cover Drew, specifically the softball club, but Tracy witnessed that she'd stepped over the club and didn't touch anything differently. During cross-examination, Alexis questioned why Tracy had gone out in a rainfall to visit the victim, and Tracy snapped that she'd gone to Drew's house to defy him for having her friend, Stella, arrested. When Alexis next asked if Tracy had seen Alexis's customer on the domain, Tracy flashed back to the day she'd told Michael she'd seen him outside Drew's house. She also answered the defense attorney with an honest no. Nina was also called to the stage, and when Justine questioned why she'd handed a false justification for herself and Willow, Nina claimed that she'd wanted to cover her son from going through a witch quest. Taking over questioning, Alexis urged Nina to admit that Willow no way asked her to make up the justification and probably went on with it because she allowed. Her mama might have been the shooter. During a recess after Nina's evidence, Drew crowed to Team Willow that the jury was buying the execution's weak case. Nina commended that she tried her stylish to take the blame for the false justification and also smiled to herself when Alexis fretted about what the jury would suppose once they saw the footage from the business camera. Next, Dante witnessed about the forensic substantiation related to the gun used to shoot Drew, and how cell phone records and footage from business camera 65 placed Willow near the Solons' home. When Justine tried to submit photos, and not the original footage, which the execution couldn't produce, from the business camera as substantiation, Alexis expostulated, since digital images could fluently be manipulated. Eventually agreeing with the defense, the judge ruled the prints inadmissible, delivering a blow to the execution's case. During cross-examination, Dante squiggled in his seat as Alexis questioned how Willow came the PCPD's main suspect on night one of the disquisition. The defense attorney established that a large number of people who lived and worked at the Quartermain estate would have had easier access to the armament than her customer, including Dante's own family, Michael Corinthos. Christina entered the courtroom, and Tracy exited, as Alexis asked Dante if he'd ever considered Michael to be a suspect, or if his particular ties had obtruded with his judgment. Justine snappily expostulated to that statement, and the judge concurred. Dante was also dismissed. Turning back towards the gallery, Alexis was surprised to see Christina sitting behind Michael and sounded indeed more surprised when Justine called Christina as the execution's coming witness. Why do you suppose Anna was given a dupe of Faison's novel about her? Is Brennan right to advise Lulu about Nathan's intentions? What do you suppose Christina will say under pledge about Willow?